no nation can build a healthcare system a patient at a time. That no citizen in this, in any society, anywhere, can expect all the medical technologies that healthcare has developed to be provided. That no physician can practice their profession assuming that they're the unrestrained advocate of every patient. That no citizen can expect, and no nation or health plan can ever afford to give the Hippocratic Oath a blank check. That public policy cannot live with the concept that we can give everybody all the health care that they need and that rationing is inevitable. In fact, I think desirable. You're never going to maximize the health of any society that are spending public funds until somebody asks that rationing question, how do we get the most health care for the limited dollars that we have? I believe that not only is the Oregon health priority system ethical, I think it's unethical for a state not to set priorities. Whoever budgets, whoever allocates limited money has rations just by the nature of it. And so we're going to have to get a better look, not only judging the medical technology for medical effectiveness, but also for its cost effectiveness. That there's a new fiscal scarcity out there that's going to require a new level of thinking and a new level of analysis. There is a conflict between the subjects we're talking about here today, pushing up the ceiling and expanding the floor. Tom Starzl says in his biography that I'm the reason that he left Colorado. And I wrote this up in Health Affairs, actually. Tom, a true genius, was trying to push up the ceiling. It really was true. But I had, at the time, 700,000 Coloradoans that had no health care. It was not next on my priorities. So I believe that we're faced with three interrelated problems. That we already, before my time, we, as a society, undertook health care called Medicare and Medicaid, retirement income called Social Security, long-term care called Medicaid. And there's a hydraulic relationship between these three. And whatever we spend on one, we don't have enough to spend on the other. And all of these now are simply fiscal time bombs. We don't fully realize how much we've indebted our children in these kind of programs. So our current expectations, our current medical practice, our current political dialogue has all been developed at this time when we had this massive transfer into health care, growing at 2.5 times the rate of inflation, an unsustainable amount of increase. And yet that's what we expect out of a system because it's really hard to downsize expectation. Expectation of doctors, expectation of academic researchers, expectations of the public. So we're an aging society. We all know that. We're going to have to run a nation of 50 Floridas. And that's good news. That's good news. This is 1900. This is 1970. This is 2000. This is 2030. Nobody's ever run a rectangular society before. But here in 2030, this will be the baby boomers, and just not near enough kids to support the programs that we've undertaken. When I got out of college in 1957, the average American woman had like 3.6 children. It's now 2, right, at replacement rate. And that's just a vastly different world when you're trying to support social programs. So one person said we made a massive bet on the ability of our children to support the elderly, and we forgot to. I knew there was something I meant to do. But this is a wonderful news for us individually. We have more life, more health, more years ahead of us than any time in any human history. And it's just that as a matter of public policy, it's a nightmare. So it's a personal dream and a nightmare. This is the current revenue that is taken by our tax system. And this, by the way, is before the Bush tax cuts, so they're not in there. And this shows, again, by 2030, the current growth of entitlements will, in fact, only fund, the current level of revenue will only fund 4 of our existing programs: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other retirement programs, the VA, military retirement, things like that. Up here is, in the blue, this is interest on the debt, and up here is everything else we have to do in government. Up here is the Coast Guard, and up here is the court system, and the White House, and all the other things that we have to do. So what do? We've tied ourselves into what was one of the great social advances in the world, social insurance, came from this guy, Baron von Bismarck. He's the guy that really set this idea that 65 was the retirement age. He said it in the 1886, as I recall, 1883. Well, life expectancy in Germany in 1883 was 47 years. Hey, it's actuarially sound. But it's not the world we live in. We now live in a slow motion crisis. And nobody will talk about what the implications are. In 2030, there'll be twice as many elderly and only 18% more people to support them. That has consequences. There's your age 20 to 64, and this is the growth of people over 65. Again, it's a blessing for us individually. But what does it do to our kids and our grandkids? Oh, the first baby boom has come to collect Social Security. How cute. We have now something like 10,000 people a day turn age 65. And it is a debt bomb that we're leaving our kids. I figured, in fact, not I figured, but the former head of the General Accounting Office, David Walker, he says that we're leaving our children $65 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities, total debt of unfunded liabilities. If the government would keep their books, like a corporation has to by law keep their books, we wouldn't have a $13 trillion deficit. We'd have a $65 trillion deficit. And because these programs last forever, this woman just died last year. She was our last surviving widow of a Civil War veteran. When did the Civil War end? 1865, a widow of a Civil War veteran? This is a young woman at age 19, in about 1919, married an 86-year-old Civil War veteran for his pension, not his passion, I'm sure. But the long-lasting consequences of this. In 2030, Bill Clinton will be younger than Ronald Reagan was when he died. So you have these unfunded liabilities. This one says $53 trillion. This doesn't include all of the unfunded liabilities that we have in state civil service pensions and police and fire pensions. We have all of these ticking time bombs in our society. And we also have the most antagonistic political atmosphere that I've seen, at least in my 40 years of watching. So costs must be controlled. It's been growing at 2.5 times the rate of inflation. That when I started in the political sphere, we spent 6% of our gross national product on education, 6% on defense, 6% on healthcare. Today, we spend 6% on education, 4% on defense, and 17% on healthcare. Healthcare has taken most of the new money of my generation. We put into these kind of entitlement programs. So in 1965, we spent as a nation the same amount on healthcare as we do education. Today, we spend the same amount on healthcare as we do education, defense, prisons, farm subsidies, food stamps, foreign aid. And it's just crowding out other important functions that we have to do in this society.